All right, I have to show this game because it encapsulates a lot of what's wrong with chess, or not really what's wrong with chess, but what's wrong with your chess. So, and my chess and everyone's chess, because it shows the difference of why you're not, probably why you're not as good as you should be or you can be, or why other levels to chess, or why do we lose games most of the time? And this game kind of encapsulates all that. And I'll show you why in just a few moments. But playing against a 1200 Lime Eagle, I think he might have been a student of mine. I'm not sure. Sometimes people randomly challenge me, and they are my students from years prior. I'll still play with them sometimes. So Lime Eagle, if I forget who you are, I'm sorry, man. Your name doesn't ring a bell, but I think you were one of my students. But he's not 1200. If you look at his regular standard rating, he's in the 1800s. He's a very strong player. And here, anyway, I'll just let the game speak for itself. I have a good center. I'm going to play e4. Now, this is, I also should say, a daily game. So this game went over the course of weeks, actually. This is a good move because it stops me from playing e4 and takes up space. Now, the computer says it's not the best, but still, it's a very reasonable move to make. I counter with knight c5. I want to get rid of this bishop. He defends, but that's not good. Now, actually, I have rook d8 here, which the computer says is the best move. Rook d8, and it just creates a line of attack on my opponent. If bishop e2, get out of the way of that. You just go e4 takes, and then you're just winning material. So just simply rook d8, just developing a piece on an open file, or soon to be open file, best move. I took, though, which is not bad, but it's not nearly the best. And after takes, I take, I don't take again. I play bishop f5. Now, I have a slight advantage, but I should have capitalized earlier. So again, a slight mistake. If I played rook d8, I'm absolutely winning. So again, take your time in chess. The crucial move isn't always the move that's 20 moves deep into the game. Sometimes it's early in the game. Always look for that killer move. Always look to be precise. The little moves matter in chess. A little move like this is all the difference between winning and losing. Okay, so I'll get back to the position. Whoops. I played this, and then bishop f5. He takes, I take, I'm hitting his queen. Now I couldn't take the queen because it's with check, so I had to take back. He moves his queen out of the way. And the game's about to get very interesting. Very, very interesting. I play rook e8. He castles. I play bishop e4. Why do I play bishop e4? For two reasons. I could win a pawn / damage his king structure if I take and then take. But really, he's not going to let me do that, but I'll get my bishop onto a bigger diagonal. So after I was anticipating something like that, I'd move my bishop back here, get out of the way of the attack, aimed at the king, hit the queen so it comes with tempo, and then after the queen moves, maybe something like this, hitting that and hitting the knight. And still he could defend all that by knight e4, but that was something in the abstract, in the air. Okay, so after this, he does play knight d2. I do play knight c6, and he plays queen c4. So pretty close to what I showed you. And now I do play queen g5. So very close to what I showed you. The difference was like here and here, the queen. So he does play, again, knight e4. So I actually forgot all that. The moves I showed you before were just what I thought he would play, and he actually did play that. And I actually did play that. So everything is holding on by, it looks like barely holding on, but it's actually fine, totally fine. His knight's well placed in the center, not just defending mate, but attacking my queen. So I move out of the way, but I don't just move out of the way. Again, chess is kind of like a tennis match. You want to hit the ball back. You don't just want to defend and block and lob the ball up for your opponent to spike it. You want to play defense and mix it with offense. So I defend my queen, but I attack the knight twice, a second time. He simply moves his knight back here, defends his knight, and also defending he's blocking this checkmate attack from ever happening. So I start pushing. Now, again, my threat is obvious. If he moves, I go for here. If he moves out of the way, I get checkmate. Okay, here it doesn't work yet because he can just take with the queen. But that's my plan. Okay, f3 is a weakening move. It's okay here, but it's a potentially weakening move because the diagonal's open to the king. I play rook d8, getting my last piece into the game, and he starts attacking the pawn, and I take here. Now, again, rook d2, simply rook d2 is the best. I jumped the gun here because I thought I had an exciting move here. So I'm losing the bishop, and you might be saying, what the heck's wrong with me? Well, I'll tell you. I followed it up with rook d2. So I had a similar idea than the computer did. My idea was just a little crazier. So I played rook d2 after I sacked the bishop. Now you might be saying, what's the point of that? Well, the point is, after I sacked the bishop, this pawn is here. So now when I put the rook on d2, I'm actually hitting these squares around the king because there's no pawn to block it. Now, why does that matter? I'll show you. He attacks my rook. So I just sacked a bishop. So you'd think I would definitely protect my rook, right? But no. I play king h7, which is a mistake. It's a blunder. What's a mistake, technically, by the computer? But I had an idea here. Now, can he take the rook? Yes, he can, and that's what he did. But why did I let him do that? Because his king was on an open diagonal. I wanted to throw this check in here because if I throw the check, I can get my queen here. However, the queen's defending that diagonal. So I said, take my rook, that's fine, but you'll be giving up this check, which he did. And then after all that, I realized too little too late. After I come here, which I thought in my head several moves prior, this is an unstoppable mate and I'm a genius, he actually has a way out of it. So now this is why you probably lose a lot of your chess games. Not necessarily. Maybe you don't think as deep, or maybe you think deeper, or whatever. But it's usually some miscalculation. You're probably too optimistic. It's probably not. You're not too pessimistic because the more pessimistic you are, the stronger the player you are. But when you start getting skilled at chess and you're still not that strong, you become very optimistic and you miss a lot of things. And we have to calculate accurately. So a lot of times we just miss the calculation. We just have an idea, but we just don't put the right move order on it. We don't prioritize the right moves, or we don't execute it as well. And then something like this happens. What's the defensive idea here for white? How do you stop this checkmate? Simple. Rook e2. It's an X-ray defense. If I play check, he takes. If I play check on h2, same thing. He just takes. So here I took the pawn first, check. Then I took the rook, and now I got back some material, but I'm down a whole rook, and I'm losing the game. So this is why we have to calculate accurately, and we have to put our ideas. Now, was I taking this game super seriously? No. But still, I really did truly think I had a good idea, and it didn't work. My opponent just calmly takes a pawn and is attacking this pawn. Now, I'm going to give you a spoiler alert. I won this game, believe it or not. Now, why did I win this game? I shouldn't have, but I don't quit. And I have resilience, creativity, and I look for the good things in my position. So what are the good things in my position? Not much. But I do have an active queen. His king is weak, but I have a passed pawn. And that's going to come into account right now. So I throw in a check. My opponent comes up to f2. And now I push e4, which is an excellent move according to the computer. However, it's still absolutely losing. Now, my opponent, the reason why e4 is so tricky is because if my opponent plays a seemingly killer move, it's actually he loses all of the advantage he has. And that's what happened in this game. He should have played rook f1, which doesn't look as good. It doesn't look strong, but it's very strong. Keeps him in the game. And he just moves his king out of the way later on, whatever, and he's good to go. His king looks weak. It looks like it's going to get checked, but he eventually can come back here and hide behind these pawns, and he's perfectly safe. Actually, he actually should come up here, blockade this pawn, and he's actually safe up in the center in the middle of the board because he has so much material on me. I can't form any attack on him when his king's in the center if I only have a queen, one attacking piece. However, he played a move here. What move do you think he played that looks good? Pause your videos. That's completely bad. And he played rook g1. And I have the bar up here to show you, to prove to you, I'm not kidding, this is a draw. Now, I won here, but at best play, this is a draw. Now, try to find my idea here. Now, I figured he would play this, and that's what e4 was setting up. e4 is a trap. But it's also a decent move. It's just pushing a passed pawn, but it's a trap. So I thought he would play this because good players, experienced players, again, my opponent's 1800 in real chess. This is just his daily rating. He came here, a rook to open file, very natural move, attacking the queen. And not only that, when my queen moves away, I'm getting check. Oops, that's check. But if my queen just moved away, right? Checkmate. So this move looks really logical. However, my idea here was e3 check. He can't go away from the rook because I'll take the rook. So he's got to stay by the rook. And now e2 check. Again, he can't come here because I'll take the rook. So king f2 and not queen check where he just takes. That would be losing. The idea here is queen takes rook, forcing the king to g1, and then queening. And now the king steps up. And now, another instructive part of this game is the endgame. This is completely drawn. Now, I have the psychological edge because I was losing, and now it's a drawn game. But objectively, this is drawn. But you have to play the basics right. And a lot of players aren't playing the endgame basics right. I check here. We trade queens. This is normal. And what are you supposed to do in the endgame? You're supposed to get your king involved. A king and pawn endgame. Why? Because when the kings and pawns are the only pieces on the board, the game of chess changes again. It becomes a different game. It's more like checkers in a way. And the king becomes a much more powerful piece. Now the king's the most powerful piece on the board. And you can't really get checkmated. Of course, unless your opponent queens. But I'm saying with the pawns by themselves, you're not getting checkmated. So you step up. And, like I always tell my students, when the queens are off the board and all the pieces are off the board, the sharks are out of the water. Now you can come and you can go into the ocean, into the middle of the ocean. And now you kind of, run the show. My opponent plays the losing move here. Now, he should have played something like king g3 and got his king into the game. But he played this. Now, what move would you play here? There's, you could move the king actually up, but I played a more accurate move and a very just kills the position right away. He created two weak squares by playing b5. I just stop these two pawn moves. b5 blockades this pawn. It stops this pawn and stops this pawn. So one pawn stops three pawns here. Now, another thing that I've never heard anyone mention that I should mention to you guys now because I've never seen it in a chess book or a video is they always talk about pawn majorities, right? And they never talk about the ratio of pawn majorities. And here's what I mean. There's a 3-2 ratio of pawn majorities on this side. So he has a pawn majority on the queen side. I have a pawn majority on the king side. However, 2-1 is a bigger ratio than 3-2. I never really thought about that until this game, to be honest. And this makes sense. 2-1, it's much easier to create a passed pawn than it is against 3-2. So, looks how this plays out. He starts to get his king in, but it's too little too late. I push my king away, and now this move stops h4, and I'm just simply going to create a passed pawn, and then my king's going to escort and chop off these pawns and then win. Now, how does it work? I create a passed pawn. He comes here. Now, I could abandon this pawn and come out here, and when he takes, just take the pawns. However, I just want to show you the power of king opposition. And I use king opposition in this endgame. That's the technique I decided to use. But it's good to use this technique because it'll pay dividends in the long run. You can use this king opposition technique in more precise endgames where you have to use it. Now, king opposition, I used it. This is when the kings are facing each other and it's your opponent's move. And he can only move the king. What do I mean? If he moves any pawn move, he just loses the pawn and I queen, right? If he comes here, he loses a pawn. If he comes here, yes, you're right. He can waste the move, but I can also waste the move. And now, again, he's in opposition. So he moves, I flank. He comes here. Now, I'm the one who's in opposition. However, I can throw a move in here. I waste a move. He comes here. Not just waste a move. I'm pushing a pass pawn. I go king opposition. Now he has to move. I outflank him. He comes here. And now I start running. I could also play this, but now I start running. And as he gets this, I score the pawns. Anyway, hopefully you found that game instructive. A couple of key takeaways. It's good to be creative in chess. Your creativity is going to help you get better and, force you to get better, but it has to be backed by raw calculation. So always work on your tactics and your calculation abilities. You want to activate your king in the endgame and don't take your position for granted. That's what my opponent did here. He thought he had the game and he missed one small move. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you did, check out this video. I'll catch you guys next time. Go play some chess.